Hey everybody, Mom's in here. So, in a few of my videos, I have mentioned I'm new to bourbon. I only seriously got into it in January of 2025 this year. But I've also said that I would let you know kind of what started my bourbon journey. So, gonna try and keep this right about the 10-minute mark because nobody wants a big, long, drawn out video where that's concerned. And not gonna lie, kind of like to talk, especially if it's about one of my favorite subjects. But anyway, so how my personal journey started was I went down to New Orleans in October of 2023. I was down there for my birthday week. My brother had planned it all out, and we had come across, ironically enough, a place called Bourbon House that, yes, sat on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. So we wanted to go in and check it out. And I was like just in awe. They had these gigantic signs hanging up that had, you know, probably close to, there's three of them, probably like close to 100 spread across the three. And so we sat down at the bar. I looked over their bourbon list. And at that point in time, I literally was only drinking like, this will give you an idea how far I've come. I was literally only drinking like Crown Royal, on the rocks, and typically they're peach flavored because I love it. I still love it. So I'm like, knowing this is probably going to be a bit of a jump, let me try, one of their bourbon flights. They had like four different flights you could choose from. So I decided to start with the Basil Hayden. And on their Basil Hayden flight, they had the dark rye, the toasted char, and just the Kentucky straight. Um, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous because I'd never drank anything neat at that time. But I'm like, I've got to, I'm gonna start taking this seriously. I can't be drinking, Canadian whiskey, which is what Crown Royal is. It's Canadian whiskey. It's technically not even bourbon. It doesn't meet the requirements. So, and I realized, hey, I like this. I like it a lot. Um, and I'm like, okay. So we were down in New Orleans for about a week. So, my brother being the kind younger brother that he is, I wanted to go back to Bourbon House. And the next time I tried their Penelope flight, and it had the Architect, the 4-grain straight whiskey, and the Toji cask. And I think that's when my love affair, I don't think I know. I know that's when my love affair of Penelope started. It was only the second time I drank actual bourbon and neat again at that. They were pouring them in the Glencairns. Um, and I loved every single one of those. Um, I want to say the Toji cask was my favorite, which, would line up for me because, it's one of their more expensive bottles from Penelope. So, leave it to me to have expensive taste. Um, but actually, the Architect was really good too. Even, that's on a little bit of their lower end of their MSRP scale that Penelope can have. And I kind of realized, okay, I need to continue on this journey after I get back home. So when we got home, I'm fortunate enough, if you want to consider it fortune, there's a liquor store that's got a pretty good variety, honestly, about a 10-minute drive from my house. So I went there, I had made notes and taken pictures of everything that I had tried in New Orleans. And I want to say the first one that I bought was, for whatever reason, I ended up picking up a Basil Hayden. And I think I was able to find just the dark rye at my liquor store. So I bought it, took it home, and, I'd sip on it. And I would wait until that bottle was gone. And then I'd go and get another one. And I don't know why, but I'm pretty sure when I got the Penelope, I found the 4 grain that I had tried down at Bourbon House. So I picked that bottle up, same thing, rinse and repeat. Finish that bottle, go and look for another one. Well, while I was down at Bourbon House, I signed up for their newsletter, so they would send me like their bourbons of the month. So then I'd be on like a search for one of those. Some were easier to find in Ohio than others. Some I was just not able to get a hold of. It happens. Or it may have taken me a while to get a hold of it. So that's how I kind of started expanding out of just the 2 distilleries I knew I liked, the Basil Hayden and the Penelope. I'm giggling because it's just like I told y'all I don't do anything. I don't do anything half-ass. So from there, it would be buy a bottle and then finish it and then go search for my next one. So that went on through, the end of 2023 up into, honestly, from about October 2023 to about, I want to say, November or December of 2024. I think at that time I may have had like a couple different bourbons, in my cabinet. And it, it depended on what I might have. I'm maybe I was, had picked up another Basil Hayden. Maybe I had found, a Penelope. And I know I had, because I branched out and tried Penelope's Weeded and, Basil Hayden's, I finally got a hold of like their dark rye bottle and bought it and whatnot. And then for Christmas of 2024, my brother won in an auction a bottle of Blanton's. Just, your normal Blanton's, just the single barrel bourbon, not the Blanton's Gold or anything like that. But I was like, okay, that's, a little more elevated than the, Penelope's and Basil Hayden's I was drinking. Then come into January of 2025, that's about when I discovered and found out about the Whiskey Weather community that I'm a part of. Joined that Discord server, started, really, I introduced myself, hey, I'm a newbie. I really don't know anything yet. Again, that's one of the things that I loved immediately with the bourbon community is just how everybody's like willing to take you under their wing and help you along and so on and so forth. So, I'd see their recommendations or they'd post pictures of, what they had, in their stock and whatnot, or, Whiskey Weather barrel picks were coming and so on and so forth. So I got in on those and bought those. And I basically, from January of 2025 to almost the end of September 2025, I had 56 bottles of bourbon. Now, I don't know if that's extreme, But again, I don't half-ass anything. Now, granted, I don't still have all 56 bottles. I know I have that because I did create an Only Drams account so that I could keep track of, what I have in my collection, what I've tried, so on and so forth. I actually have a gigantic spreadsheet that I keep track of everything I've tried, especially if, I don't know if you saw the samples that I tried when I was out and for dinner right before the Papa Roach. I keep track of things that way too, because if it's just like those samples that I tried from Back Porch Saloon, and I really liked them, like the Widow Jane, that was the first time I'd ever had it. Loved it. I will be on the lookout for it. Um, but me being me, I'm going to forget. So I end up, keeping track of it on a spreadsheet too. Because really the only thing I want in my Only Drams are just bottles that I own. And I want people, if I'm friends with others in the bourbon community, to see what I have as well. Because having done, some sample, I've only exchanged one sample in my time so far. I've been fortunate enough to have other people send me samples. I'm starting to get a little collection of the little sample bottles that, if there's something that, somebody can't find in their region, in the whiskey weather community that, wants me to send them a sample, I want to be able to do that. So yeah, I keep track of everything. Sometimes I get a little too far behind on my spreadsheet. I try and stay up on that. Because eventually all these ones that I've just tried, and I would highly recommend like doing what I did if you're new, and you just really want to get into it and you're not sure. I think one of the best things I did for myself was how I started a bourbon house down in New Orleans. And I've kind of held on to that when I go other places that have flights that I can try. And, I'll take that picture so that I'll remember. And that way, if I come across something like the Jack Daniel's 12, fantastic. Um, I'll be lucky to find it. I think it's pretty hard to find right now if it's even still available on shelves. But I would recommend, if you want to get into it, and you don't want to spend a lot of money on a bottle, I made the suggestion of, the Traveler's number 40. I think that's a good beginner bottle to start with, somebody that wants to, experiment, see if, bourbon might be their thing. Or, if you're fortunate enough to have some places around you like I do, I have Back Porch, I have Bourbons. They actually changed it from Bourbon Kitchen to just, they call it Bourbons now here in Middletown. I have White Dog Distillery. That's probably like 10 minutes from me, that they've got, for it to be a small little place in Middletown, they've got a huge selection. So if you can find places like that near you where you can go and spend, maybe 20 bucks, on a flight of 3 or 4 bourbons, I would suggest trying that. And even if you're not sure which ones you want to try, because some of them will have like pre-laid out flights, like I found at the Bourbon House. They had it all predetermined, the Basil Hayden and the Penelope. And some of the places, I know White Dog Distillery here in Middletown has that, where you can pick certain ones, or just, ask the person, they'd be very happy to, share their bourbon experiences. Because, and maybe, it's luck of the draw for me, but a lot of the people that, these places that I've mentioned that I visit, they're pretty knowledgeable about, which ones to try. So yeah, there you have it. A little longer than the 10 minutes. And I don't know why I'm shocked at myself where that's concerned. But that's how my bourbon journey began. Let me know in the comments how yours began. I'd be curious to see how everybody else's started. And besides that, I love to interact with, my followers, or just, people in the bourbon community in general. So yeah, drop in the comments below how your bourbon journey started. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.